Good evening, good afternoon. I don't know what time it is in your world, but in my world, it is just after lunchtime. I am Kevin Impeccable Peck, your co-host, along with Jay Jackson. I always forget Jackson. You've merged you and your wife's name, so
Jackson Rao.
Jackson Rao. And I always want to say Rayo for some reason, but Jackson Rao is it. If you're not from the Baltimore area, chicken box might sound like something foreign to you, but if you are, you know it's four wings, fries. It's lunchtime. It's greasy. It's salt, pepper. It is ketchup. I get hungry every time I talk about it. But this was created by the Afro American newspaper, the nation's, the world's oldest family owned, going on 134 years, black media company in the country. During the pandemic, we decided that we were going to talk some great topics around chicken, but guess what? We all had to go inside. So here we are still online, and the chicken box is where you speak your truth. And the good thing about your truth is I do not have to agree with you. You know, why do we all have to agree all the time? Nobody wants to agree to disagree. If you don't like this black shirt, then you don't like me, which is the stupidest thing I heard. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the leading responsibility in AI, artificial intelligence, whatever. We've all heard the buzzwords. Some of us stand clear away with it. As a matter of fact, some of my kids, they don't even like it, which is a whole different world in itself. You know, I'm not. I'm gonna leave it alone there. And also this multi-industry innovation of what's going on all over. We have some fantastic people joining us today, Jay. Let's bring them onto the platform. Let's get right into the conversation. AI is the buzz. It's here to stay. We can't get rid of it. It's like when the CD came out and replaced the cassette tape. That was it. That
That's
was the
right.
ball game for it. The ball game. Let's add Lawana. Lawana Jones. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good. We've been fighting technology all day. This you must gonna say some good stuff today. They're like, we got Lawana Jones coming on this show. What? She shut the internet down. They don't want us to get this information. You doing good today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
And also joining you is Joe Wells. Joe, everything clear on your end?
Ev- Everything is great on my end. Thank you.
Jay's going to do a quick introduction. I mean, everybody could probably introduce themselves, but we want to give you your flowers. The Afro used to have archives with just papers and pictures. Now, when the future looks at it, they're going to see video. So
Okay.
we would love to give you your flowers while you're on there. Jay,
Okay. So, Lawana Jones is an executive advisor, keynote speaker, and author of Mission First, a playbook for operationalizing responsible AI before it becomes a crisis. With 30 years of C suite experience and back to back recognition as a top 50 women CTO honoree in 2024 and 25, she advises boards, CEOs, and institutions across healthcare, government, and nonprofits on building AI governance frameworks that are practical, ethical, and built to last. Also joining us is Joseph Wells, who is the Director of Master's Programs at Morgan State University's Earl G. Graves School of Business and Executive Director of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program in Baltimore. With 25 plus years spanning Wall Street, Big Pharma, including stints at GlaxoSmithKline, Merrill Lynch, and First Boston, and now higher education, he brings a rare multi-industry lens to business development, capital strategy, and building the next generation of black business leaders. Together, they represent two forces black businesses need most right now: the governance architecture to build responsibly, and the strategic muscle to scale competitively. So, welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Um, I can start if you'd like. I have a couple questions. I'll go to Luana first. Luana, you spent 30 years in executive leadership, and now you're focusing on AI governance very specifically. What moment or pattern made you realize that responsible AI wasn't just a tech problem, but it was also potentially a leadership crisis?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on the show today, and thank you for that very important question. So, most recently serving in a C-suite position at one of the third largest private nonprofits in the world, what was evident to me was everyone's using AI. How do we use it safely and securely? Given the nonprofit that I was working for, their brand is worth like $45 million, and so kind of reducing the risk in the organization by determining how are we going to make sure that we keep everything, squared away and safe and secure, and, maintain the trust that our donors had in the organization. And so it was very important to me to figure out how do we, govern this thing that's out of the box now that everybody is actually using. And so that was the reason why I came up with Mission First. I wrote the book on AI governance because it was the experience that I had rolling it out in an enterprise organization that supported over 1,100 entities across the world.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, as we jump into AI, it's going to be somebody on here that's watching who maybe watching live now or replay. Just bring them into what AI actually is. Let's just define it in its entirety. Not everybody like, oh, they AI'd the picture, they AI'd the video, they did the AI on that. Is that AI? They wrote their paper on AI. What's in the world in AI, and when did it get started?
So it actually started back in the 50s. So AI is not new. AI stands for artificial intelligence. Again, not a new concept. We over the last 10, 15 years have come into the knowledge of it. A lot of our large corporations have decided that they want to get in this space and offer large language models for the consumers to use, for business people to use. So really, I mean, that's what it is. It's being able to do some tasks, automated tasks, and wisdom and knowledge that maybe you don't have. You can actually go to like a ChatGPT and put in a question and out comes the answer. So it's artificial intelligence, just exactly what it says.
Artificial always seemed like it was fake, right? Back in the artificial coloring, artificial flavoring. Is that what gets some intrepidation for some users? Just the whole artificial part?
I wouldn't say that artificial is what gets them in trouble. I think what gets folks in trouble is what artificial intelligence spits out. They take it as 100% accurate and they run with it. And people have to be careful. I've always believed in implementing no trust model. So even if it spits it out, I'm going to check and verify. And I would recommend that everybody else do the same thing. You're going to use that wisdom and knowledge, but you also need to check and verify what it's actually saying to you.
Trust but verify. I got you. That's a good lesson for everything, right? Oh, yeah. What do you mean you don't believe I'm telling you the truth? No, I'm just verifying it. Chill out. So Joe, man, at my alma mater, Morgan State University, man, we've heard your accolades. Grave School of Business. How is Morgan leading in this area during this time in AI?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we're thinking about. The university itself is thinking about artificial intelligence from a research standpoint. So we've actually stood up a center for responsible AI out of the School of Engineering, and the business school is taking a different, slightly different approach. We're thinking about this from the standpoint of management. So, what Lawana was talking about, there's an execution and an implementation piece to it, but there's also a management piece. And so I think where a lot of companies will end up getting into difficulty is if, to your point, you turn over everything kind of end to end for AI to do. And really what you need is a human intervention on the front side, if you will. And then you need the human intervention, if you will, kind of on the back end when the output comes out to be verifying and checking and the guardrails. AI can do a lot of heavy lifting in between. So we're taking the approach that we're looking at AI from a management standpoint, and we're taking the approach as far as students are concerned, that students need to be exposed to AI everywhere, and that's the opportunity as well as the challenge, because if you have an AI minor or you have a class in AI, it ends up being something that that people can either avoid or just not have access to. And as we're talking with employers, they're expecting students to come out, as they call it, AI fluent. And that doesn't mean that I can use ChatGPT. I can use ChatGPT to write to write a paper or do a letter. it's, much more fundamental than that. So we're actually in the process. I've drafted a new MBA curriculum, which has got through a lot of approval and hurdles. But it's really looking at putting AI or artificial intelligence into each of our core classes. So whether it's finance, accounting, HR, entrepreneurship, data analysis, it doesn't matter. You're going to be exposed to it. And then obviously more on as you move through your elective courses. But this really for us is a workforce development issue and ultimately a student competitive issue. So the one thing we don't want to get caught up into is this whole notion of a digital divide, where African-American or the minority students end up coming out behind the curve because they're not exposed and then they don't understand, kind of how to use the various tools. The one upside of AI is that while you can fall behind, you can also catch up rapidly by effectively deploying the software and learning the tools. And so the approach we're taking really is how do we approach this from a management standpoint and from a career development standpoint is how career development and workforce development. We're also thinking about, because it's hypocritical if you just tell students, hey, here's how you ought to be doing this. We're also thinking about how we do this from a process standpoint. So, for example, I'm working to bring AI tools into our admissions process to help with our interviewing. And we're looking across the business school at how do we bring AI in to help us with some of the processes that we're doing, which are either very manual or could certainly benefit from better integration. So we automate a lot of things where we can. I think at the end of the day, AI is going to be a massive time saver and is going to allow people to really kind of focus, as far as I'm concerned, on kind of much higher value add projects and processes by automating a lot of the things that can be safely automated. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it. Workforce development and career readiness is how we're thinking about it from the student perspective.
Absolutely. If you just jumped in, we are talking about AI, not only AI, but responsible AI. This year's Afro Business Black Expo is right around the corner. It's going to be at the Reginald Lewis Museum, talking about a huge titan and giant in the industry. And it's a place you want to be where you can, I don't know, it might be a couple tickets left because it's kind of like an exclusive event just because of the nature of the information that's being shared. But I can't wait to meet you guys in person next week. I know we're all digital, but it's good to touch a person. So Jay, jump in. We're talking about AI, but we're talking about leading responsible AI, which means there must be some irresponsible AI going on somewhere. Jay.
Well, we'll get to that, but there's plenty of irresponsible AI. But I do want to sort of pose this question to the both of you, but to Lawana first. Black-owned businesses and Black institutions are often late to the table on emerging technology, not by choice, but by resources and access. How do you make responsible AI a realistic conversation for organizations and institutions operating on not just the enterprise level budgets, but also for Joe, institution level budgets as well?
So I want to just start by saying I applaud Joe for the work that he's actually doing. He mentioned a couple key things that I would like to kind of reiterate: having that human-centered approach. He mentioned having a human at the beginning and having a human at the end. I would also say having a human throughout the whole entire process. A human-centered AI process, I think, is probably what is most feasible and also the safest, right, in our climate today. So as far as Black businesses, typically, to be honest, we tend to be late to the party. But for Black businesses today, it's not, we have to be involved. It's not how we do entrepreneurship. In the past, we do it differently now. And it is a level setter for folks that are actually in the field in business, who are working, being able to utilize these tools, have access to these tools to begin with, and then utilize these tools. So I see it as an economic, an ability to participate in our economy, but also an equalizer. And I could tell you personally, being able to jump into this space these AI jobs were not available 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now Black folks can get in and make money utilizing these AI tools, having access to the tools and using these tools and being able to use it in business. So we can't afford to be late to the party, but we also have to be able to adopt these tools responsibly and not recklessly, as we had mentioned as well.
And Joe, same question.
Yeah, I would add that that unlike other technologies in the past that might have been more expensive to deploy, if we think about deploying any of the tools we're talking about, the large language models, whether that's ChatGPT is the one most folks use, and Gemini, but if you're thinking about Perplexity or Claude or any of the other large language models, there really isn't a massive price barrier, if you will, to getting in on these things. And to Lawana's point, it is a massive piece of leverage. I don't remember the name of the company, but I remember seeing I think it was on a 60 Minutes, and it was some entrepreneur in the Midwest who had built a $1 billion logistics company, billion with a B. And he was in the process of hiring because he was lonely, because he built a business with AI agents. And he had no employees, no human employees. It was just AI agents running, him running the business. So, we're looking at potentially deploying, some of these solutions at an enterprise level. It would be really expensive if we were going to get, every single student a license, even at the educational rate to Claude. We actually did the math, and for everybody in the grade school, it will come out to somewhere around $4 million, which is way more money than we're going to spend. But again, you're now talking, probably between students and employees, over 2,500 people. Talking about a small business, that number is going to be significantly less. And to Lawana's point, to me, it's like you're going to budget in for electricity, you're going to budget in for, for heat and power. You're going to have to budget in for, for one of these providers, at a professional level. And it's not that expensive when you really think about it. It's a couple $100 a year to kind of, have the number of credits and run at a professional level to allow you to do a lot of things that would normally take you a lot of time to do. So it just simply needs to be something that people need to get educated on. That's just the first thing. But then it has to be part and parcel really of the way you think about doing business. So if anything else, artificial intelligence and these large language models should fundamentally begin to alter the way that entrepreneurs think about starting a business. And current entrepreneurs should think about actually running and managing their business.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that AI, at least as it stands right now, we'll see in 5 years how that goes. Things are changing pretty quickly. Has really pushed the democratization of entrepreneurship, right? Before it was, you could have a great idea, but unless you have, angel investors and things like that, you're only growing but so high. But to your point, Joe, you can have some guy just sitting in the Midwest who builds $1 billion company, and that's a very real thing. It's very possible. AI apps and things like that, building those, if you have a good idea and you can sort of, iterate it and just like keep going, you can make something that's pretty significant just off of an idea. And, a $20 Claude investment, $20 a month Claude investment. So it is actually rather impressive what some people are able to do. But I am leery about sort of the digital divide that is potentially happening without organizations or institutions like Morgan State who are helping kids get in sort of right now. Because if they don't, then I think the digital divide will be far larger. That gap will be far larger than we've seen even with just the internet previously. I think it's much faster growth.
Yeah, I think the downside is that, and this is just, again, I'm in the business school and I'm not an academician, so I come out of the world of business. And so I'm always thinking about, at the end of the day, our students, our product, if you will, that we produce are students. And we produce that for a market that wants that first and foremost, and this is the point we always make, that first and foremost, wants talented students. Now, the fact that you bring other attributes is fine, but they first and foremost want talented people, and they want people that are prepared. And so, as I found being at Morgan for the last decade or so, it's not a question, to your point, Jay, it's not a question of whether our students are, have the intellectual horsepower to do whatever it is. They do. Where they lack sometimes is in that preparation. And so it's our job to get them prepared to be able to go out and compete. And you're correct. If employers are looking for these skills and are looking for students to have these skills and these understandings, again, being able to use ChatGPT to write a paper is great. But if I'm stepping into a company, into an HR or finance area, maybe I need that individual to be able to use these tools to actually build spreadsheets or to build other kind of models, or to potentially help me integrate, one or two processes together. So that's really what I need people to be able to do. So you're right. If we're not doing that, and doing that, and doing that intentionally, then we will once again have students that are, have a great degree and have great intellectual horsepower, but are unable to compete with students coming out of other institutions simply because we don't have this level of preparation. So we're putting a very, very keen eye on getting this into the curriculum across the platform, and then looking for other means, whether it's workshops or whatever else we can deliver, so that students can do some of this learning. We're looking at doing it through clubs and organizations where we can, because you're right. It's something that the gap we can close the gap relatively quickly, but to your point, the gap can also expand rapidly, to a point where, where students simply won't be competitive, and we don't want that to happen, because, it's typically, to your point, what does happen is that we're late to the party, last to the party, and then we're trying to play catch up, or we're trying to, or people are trying to do us a solid, to give us a break, when all we really need is to make sure that everybody is prepared, and then we can compete just as well as anybody else can, from my perspective.
That was well said, Joe. You gave the definition of luck. When preparation meets opportunity, right? Are we going to be prepared? Because the opportunity is coming down the street every day. Lawana Jones wrote a book called Mission First. I think this goes right into it. First, I just want to know, what inspired you to write this book, and why should leaders put mission, like Joe was saying, in preparation ahead of technology?
So let me just start by saying you cannot separate technology and leadership, which is exactly why I wrote the book. To roll out these tools, AI tools, across any enterprise, you've got to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's safe. You've got to make sure you do it in a way that protects privacy. You've got to be wise about how you're using the tools. But what I found was, since it's so new, people were not paying attention to AI governance. So AI governance is, right, what tools are we using? What data are we actually putting into those tools? Who's reviewing the content? Who's making decisions? So if you're talking about an HR department, if you're utilizing a tool to actually review applications or review resumes, is there bias in your process? So these are some of the things that you need to look at as an organization. Yes, put the mission first, but also you've got to have people in the middle of those decisions as well. And so I wrote the book to really help folks to operationalize how they implement AI in their enterprise organizations or small businesses or healthcare. Again, I have had the opportunity to work with boards who are looking at how do we implement these tools in our organization and do it safely. And so it's not about you just utilizing technology. It's how do we do that? As a leader, I have to be responsible for how these tools are actually being utilized in my organization. So that's why I wrote the book.
Responsibility. Who wants to be the responsible adult here, or child, right? Or governance? Because they say data is king, and I guess you guys agree that data is the new gold mine.
Yeah, to Lawana's point, I heard a interesting, and I guess you could say funny if it didn't happen to you, story about talking about AI management, where code was written and agents were launched, and either the guardrails weren't written correctly or the individuals should have been minding the store weren't. And as you know, the AI agent is going to go in, look for the most efficient way to do something. And, you know, if you want to renovate your house, you know, the question could be, well, is it cheaper for me to do this renovation, or is it cheaper for me just to knock it down and start all over again? In some cases, it's cheaper to knock it down and start all over again. You can kind of see where this is going, because the AI agent found a bunch of errors in something, and rather than fix it, just went in, and it's a $100 million, several $100 million business, just went in and wiped out all the financial information, just wiped it out.
Wow.
And and including backups. Now I think they had a backup to a backup, a hard backup, but the point was that's something that a human being would never have done. But the agent went in and wasn't trained properly, so to speak. That's okay. Well, the best thing for us to do here, given the errors and what they're here, is to wipe it out and start all over again. So we talk about AI being responsible, having Lawana's right, having human beings touch points all the way along. You want to make sure you're avoiding this. We're certainly thinking about if you're going to bring AI into in our parlance, our confidentiality really around student data. So how does that piece of it work? And we had students in our MS and data analytics program deploy AI in some dashboards on a capstone project last year. And everything was built around, the IDs, student IDs. So everything was, and then we anonymized the information, but they had to actually think about all of this as they were developing the dashboards and tools. Because you're right, if you don't, AI can move very, very quickly and analyze, large amounts of data and very, very rapidly. But if you don't do it right, AI can move very, very quickly and analyze large amounts of data very rapidly, and then maybe even make some decisions. So, we're also very, very early in, even though it's been around for a long time. And people have trepidation about it. I think people think that AI is, it's going to, wipe every job off the planet, which is not going to be the case. I think the one thing it will do, and I will probably get on to this, but it's going to spur, I think, it'll probably end up being the largest, launch of entrepreneurial activity, because a lot of people that may have been laid off are going to be launching businesses. New people are going to be coming in, launching businesses. We work with many, many students who aren't interested in going to work, getting out and going to work for a Fortune 5, like we might have coming out of graduate school. They're more interested in standing up their own thing. So I think it's to your earlier point, it's going to really be a level setter, and allow for a lot of different people to compete in a lot of different areas. But again, this is about setting the guardrails and understanding, not only from the security standpoint, but from an ethical standpoint, what is the best way to end up deploying the technology?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to piggyback on what he was saying. First of all, I applaud you for all the work that you're doing at the business school. It is wonderful. There's a local business school here in Rochester, New York, where I am today. It's called the Golisano Institute of Entrepreneurship, and I had a chance to speak over there. It's about 200 students, and the audience was not just made up of 20-something. These are folks that have lost their jobs, decided to sign up to go to the school to actually take the certification in AI that they offer. And like I mentioned, it is a level setter. Folks are now able to take on new jobs that may not have even existed 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ago. And so it is going to be important for our folks culturally for us to get on board with it, to use it, to get the tools, use the tools, and so that you don't feel like you're being put out of your job. Every single person who's in the workforce right now should be looking how they can use AI in their job. And employers are actually looking for that. The employers that I speak to are looking for ways to automate the workflows. So you talked about agents and agentic AI. It is obviously going to be very important for everyone to learn how to use AI and the tools in AI. Now, we do have to use it responsibly. You do have to set up guardrails because AI is going to AI and people are going to people. And I will just say that sitting in a company where I've set up guardrails, even though people were trained on what they could put into AI and what they couldn't, even there were policies that they signed off on, they still put in personal information, social security numbers. And that's why you have to have guardrails really to cover yourself as an organization and even a small business. Your use of data when you're working with your clients and customers, you just have to make sure that you have guardrails, privacy, policy, because on the other end, I mean, you could be sued. There is liability around using AI. It's not just the technology. There's a lot of liability around use of it.
Actually, that dovetails into my next question, which again is for both of you. What is the most dangerous assumption that a CEO or board chair can make right now about AI and its future impact in either their institutions or their businesses? I'll go to you, Joe, first. Or it doesn't matter.
There you go. No, go ahead, Lawana.
I was just going to say the assumption that it's not in their business. So they can assume nobody's using the tools. I haven't purchased the tools for people to use, and so they're not using them. People are using ChatGPT on their phones. They're using it. If you haven't set up guardrails to prevent them from downloading the large language models on their equipment, folks are using the tools. And so how do we allow them to use the tools safely? Like I said, by setting up guardrails, coming up with policy, integrating privacy and training, upskilling. You know, a lot of these companies are offering, like a Google or a Meta, or all these companies are offering trainings that folks can actually take for free. And so our folks need to jump on the bandwagon and really understand how to use these tools and use them safely.
Joe?
Yeah, I would say kind of the flip side of that is understanding that it is being used. Well, I haven't purchased it. Lawan's point, I haven't. Well, the fact that you haven't doesn't mean that the individuals haven't done it on their own. And I think the other piece would be to something that we touched on earlier, which is, okay, I use Claude or Chat to develop X. Here it is. We're good. I think that's also dangerous. I know that academicians will often, and I'm starting to see this now when I review essays for applications. There are tells and hints that that somebody took this straight off of ChatGPT and just dumped it. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw this article. It's kind of humorous. It was in one of the New York papers last week. There was a professor, actually an African-American professor, I forget which school it was, who snuck into a question that he put onto an exam, but he snuck into the prompt in white letters so you couldn't see it as you just copy and pasted something about it was some kind of a history. I think it was a history final exam, but he focused on, I think, European history or something. And he snuck in a prompt like, please add something about, the Jurassic Park period to the answer. And so what he found was he sent it out to 30 of his students, and something like 25 students in their essay, in their final exam answer, had something in there totally random about how this thing, about the Jurassic period. And so it was clear that they simply just cut and pasted. They didn't bother to review it or read it. And so imagine if I just use Perplexity to help I'm consulting, help a client. I'm on the board of a company, help the board develop a full financial model. And so I said, it took me about 20 minutes. Something that would have taken me hours to build back in my investment banking days. And I said, here it is. It's in draft form. I still need to go through it and make sure that there are no errors or whatnot in it. But, this is something for us to talk about. I said, but it's in draft form. So don't start dumping our own company numbers in and thinking that what it's going to spit out is gospel. So I think it's, people can rely too much on the technology, thinking that, this has got to be great because, Claude did it or Chat or whatever it is. And so, like you said, you still have to have human beings involved. You still have to have people checking and verifying. And I think, in the rush to think about, I'm going to improve productivity and I'm going to save millions of dollars by deploying AI everywhere and firing people, you're leaving yourself open to, now having, issues around, kind of validity and credibility of what you're doing, or having the expense and the embarrassment of now having to hire half those folks back. Worse, having to hire them because they've now all stood up consultancies at twice the expense to have them come back to help you fix some of the things that you probably should have gotten straight the first time. So I think, from my perspective, those are kind of two things to kind of keep in mind. It's, it is being used if you don't think it is, and then you can't just turn it over and say, yeah, this is gospel because, my AI agent delivered it for me.
Yeah, here's looking at you, Larry Ellison at Oracle, for cutting 21,000 of your employees, 13% of his employees, and now they're, I think their stock is, or his personal wealth is down by half over the last couple of months. It's like you can't replace everybody with agents. Like it doesn't work that way, and some people are going to learn the hard way. So yeah, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So I'm okay with that. But yeah, I'm going to leave it to my co-host here for another question.
Well, I'm just saying, tools make everything easier, right? My son was putting together some, those things that come from IKEA with 2,558 parts. Me, I'm going to call TaskRabbit or something and tell him, have somebody else do it. But, he's doing it, not with a drill gun, but he likes to put things together. I'm just making an analogy that the tools always make the job better. I don't care what particular job that you're doing. But when it comes to business, we have to look for tools to be efficient as well. But what we can't do is, because we've been on search for so long, is just think we can apply search logic to AI. And so sometimes you think everything that you're trying to help you do some heavy lifting in business is just one or two sentences. Sometimes it's 20 pages of information to help you do something. And even further than that, what I found, and I don't know, Lawana and Joe, what you found, when I can't think about it, sometimes I want the AI to even write me the prompt because my brain might not go all the way there. So instead of me losing my hair, the rest of it, all two pieces, I will ask AI to make me the prompt, but then you still got to read it. You know what I mean? And you still got to you got to go down the road in business. But if you're thinking that this tool is going somewhere, it's not. Business owners and the business owners that really use the governance, like you said, use it responsible, and also it's going to make you think. For everybody on here and probably listening, AI has made me think in a different way, because they used to say back in the day, everything that you want, all the answers are hidden away in the question. And when you know the right questions to ask, the answers will be revealed to you. But now we have something that can kick those answers out quicker than any time in human history. It is, like Joe said, the great equalizer, especially in Black business. You can leverage this technology to exponentially run your business, even down to like the billionaire, the one, he's just bored. Guess what? He can sell it to me if he's that bored. I'm not gonna be bored with no employees, but you understand what I'm saying. So look, this is a topic we could probably talk about forever. We're gonna get into it next week at the Black Business EXPO. We have you experts coming on, just to shed light, because the subject is so vast and it's such in our face, but it can't be in our face so much that we're missing, like they try to do with Black people all the time. Let's entertain them while we manipulate the whole world over here. It's not so much entertain. Don't be entertained so much about the AI. Let's see what's really going on and behind the curtain. because things are moving around. You just might not see it's moving around, but it's moving around. To the players who always want to keep moving the pieces around to their side of the fence. So I was on the box. That's kind of, when you get on the chicken box and you say whatever you want to say. That's what I wanted to say. That time, I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person. Yeah. And I want to just give final thoughts on this, just on the responsibility and anything else that you just want to, like you feel that, like you got to shake somebody, or you just you just got to drive home with the digital hammer. Let's go there. Jay, I'll start with you. I know you I like your strong opinions, by the way. Mr. Rao, Jackson Rao. This guy's bold. I'm telling you, he took his wife's last name. I still love that. We had a whole show.
Combined last name.
Combined. Okay, combined. Go ahead.
So I guess, AI obviously is, the buzz term of the moment, right? But it isn't, to your point, it's not going away. Some people think it will. There's plenty of conversations about data centers and what have you, but in the reality, it isn't going away. So I think it is a good idea to utilize that technology to lessen the gap between, especially the Black community and other communities in the United States. I think you guys, Joe and Lawana, you guys represent not the different ends of the spectrum, but two huge steps in lessening that gap, which is the education aspect, right? Kids going into college and getting these kind of fundamentals, and college is for changing how people think, or how to enhance or affirm how they think. And then, Lawana, your position is you are in the business world, and let's say you're a C-suite executive, or you're just a person working in a corporation. How do you take what you've learned at Morgan and applying that into the business world for real, not just in wild concepts of, dashboards that do nothing, but they look pretty from Claude or something like that. But how do you make them work in the real world? And I think having Black folks on both sides of that equation, I think, is really a powerful thing, because I think a lot of times we want to educate kids and bring them up in these things, and then we send them out to predominantly white organizations, and they are left, just kind of floating alone, where they don't see someone who looks like them. They're not talking about, we didn't have a chance to talk about this, but they're not dealing with AI and how that affects Black people and minority groups very specifically, and how these things are trained, and they're trained on biases that have existed since the founding of the country and things like that. But to have the two of you on both ends of that spectrum, I think it's really, really powerful. So I appreciate both of your work, and I'm sure we'll talk again. But I do really appreciate you guys being there. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm not quite going to get on the box or the couch. I want to thank you guys for the work you're doing, because, like you said, everybody is driving the car fast, and then somebody bangs their head through the windshield, and that's then somebody responsible says, I'm going to invent a seatbelt. So, Lawana, thank you for inventing the AI seatbelts that we're going to need, and the guardrails that we're going to need as we just go forward. We like to look good. We like to be in the fast car, but it hurts when you run into the brick wall behind you. So, and Joe, you bring everything from the inside and out. You've had a chance to live, and you probably still live in a lot of big corporations, but you also have a chance to build up the future generations. And the question is, after you build them up, because I went through those halls of Morgan, you still gonna have to make a choice whether you use it. You could say start and finish, I finished the class, blah, 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 and you go on. But, are you applying anything that you've learned in those 4 years once you get out? Because you still got to do it. Like the drill and the screwdriver can still be sitting there. If you don't pick up either one, you're not going to screw it in. I don't care how much you try. So, Joe, I got. Lawana, did you go to Morgan too?
I did not.
I just made you an honorary Morgan alum. Sorry, but I got all the love for Morgan, and thank you, Joe, and thank you guys both for sharing your expertise and your time next week. If I don't get a chance to say it then, So I'm officially off the box. Joe, you can go in the box next, and we'll let our leading lady go last.
First of all, I want to say thank you to both of you for having me on. We're looking forward, putting on now my Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program hat. We're looking forward to participating and being at the expo. The one thing I can tell you that the data is showing us is that the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs are African American women, and I can tell you that the makeup of our classes. I've been with the program here in Baltimore since 2017, and I'll just put it this way, and I'm half joking, that the underrepresented minority in the classroom are now white guys, which is a complete turnaround from where we were, now 9 years ago. So African American women are starting businesses at a faster rate. We don't take startup entrepreneurs. You have to be in business for a couple of years and have 75K in revenue and 2 FTEs. But that population is exploding, and is only going to be growing. And so, we're looking at that. And that population is hungry to understand, again, how do I use AI responsibly, but how do I use it to help me run my business more efficiently? And how do I use it to scale? So the one thing I would say is that it is not going anywhere. And in my estimation, and this is my own personal opinion, it's going to have the same impact from an historical standpoint that the printing press had, that the advent of the personal computer had, and the advent of the internet had on kind of all aspects of life, let alone business. So it only stands to reason that we, as Black and brown folks, simply need to get educated and need to find ways, again, to learn and to deploy, learn the technology. We use the term internally in the business school, emerging technologies. We don't use AI in particular, only because, it's AI today. It's agentic AI tomorrow. Who knows what it's going to be, the next day and the next day. So we want to make sure that we're moving and we're flexible. But as I said earlier, it's all about, from us, it's about the workforce development and the career preparation at the end of the day. That's where we know with our students the skill set they need to have coming out, and we're moving as quickly as we can to make sure that we're getting those things deployed so that they can simply be competitive when they get out. And we want to make sure fundamentally, and I will get on my box here for a split second. We want to make sure that fundamentally they are prepared. Full stop. That's it. I don't care that you're Black, because quite frankly, corporate America is caring less and less that you're Black. They're caring much more about what can you actually do for me. And we need to make sure that our students, that when they are prepared like that, we have seen this, they can compete with anybody, anywhere, anytime. So that's not an issue. Our issue is to make sure that they simply are as prepared as we can possibly make them to go out there and earn their spot, wherever that spot is that they're looking for, if they choose to go into the Fortune 5 or large nonprofit or government or whatever it is. And that's our charge, that's our mandate, and that's our approach, is really focusing all of this around career development, career readiness, and workforce development. So I will now hop down off of my box. But thank you guys again for the opportunity.
Everybody needs to be able to. I'm glad you can still hop. You sound like you had a good vertical there, Joe. Lawana Jones. What? Oh, you can still dunk? Is that what you're going to say?
No, I was going to say that I hit a milestone earlier this year, so I'm just happy that I can that I'm still vertical.
All right, there you go.
I said, but with AI, you could dunk still. You know what I mean?
Yes, I could. You're absolutely right.
Say a little prompt, make Joe dunking.
Exactly.
Michael Jordan's body, and boom, there you go.
There you go.
Lawana Jones, CEO. Is it Aureon?
Aureon Global AI.
Aureon
Yes,
Global AI.
Yes. Yeah.
You're on the box officially.
Yes. Thank you so much again for having me on here. And Joe kind of touched on a little bit of something that I didn't speak about, but women in AI. So I'm actually doing a session in September specifically around women in AI. So Black women make up less than 1% of leadership in a lot of these companies. And we know over the last year or so, given the administration, we've lost 3,000 plus women, Black women in leadership roles. So it is important for me as a Black woman to do what I can to support other Black women and mentor them and provide opportunity for them. When I was at this company I mentioned, the SVP, Chief Technology Officer at this company, that I was the first CTO in that company, their 137-year history, the first Black female ever in that role. And so I didn't take that responsibility lightly. I made sure that when I ramped up my department, I looked at folks of color who are very good in what they did and made it a point to make opportunities for folks. So even though I'm not in that role anymore, I still believe that's my charge, to make room for our folks in these spaces and places and mentor and guide and advocate for them as well. So I just wanted to say that still doing that, even though I'm not in that role in that particular job anymore, have created my own through entrepreneurship, my own company where I'm able to leverage my connections, my expertise to help our folks to get into this space and place. So I am excited about the session next week and excited to see you all there at the session as well.
All right. The ROC is in the building, Rochester's.
Yes,
Shout out
sir.
to Rochester, everybody. You know, it's some good things going on. I heard the accent. My wife's from Buffalo. Anyway, that's a whole other AI thing. Voice recognition. See, we're really smarter than AI. It might compute faster, but we have actually, God made us a lot smarter than AI. You know, so don't get tricked by the wizard Richard Pryor behind the curtain on the Wizard of Oz. If you're too young to get that joke, you ask your mother or your grandmother. So anyway, next week is the expo. Go to afro.com, guys. We are the oldest Black provider family of media information. It's all about getting the information to you, no matter how it comes out, whether it's an AI, on a cell phone, whatever device in the future. We're emerging too, Joe. You know what I mean? We're gonna adopt that word, emerging. And right now in the Black community, we have an emergency, people. You got to pay attention because we'll be left behind. Can't keep saying I don't understand it. I don't believe in that AI stuff. I'm scared. All of the things that you are placing in your psyche, in your mindset, it's happening. As sure as the parking light came on the back of the car. You remember that third light that they had to put in the window? As sure as the CD moved to the MP3 to streaming, AI is not going anywhere. And you're just going to be fooling yourself. So until next week, remember I say call a senior. You know, we might have to have a little senior for AI's thing at the Afro. You know, we get our seniors in it because they're home. They'll discover that they found a whole new world of information out there. But call them up. Don't text some people. Call your grandma, your granddaddy, your auntie, or just a family member you haven't talked to in a while. They are looking forward to hearing you. An AI agent can never replace the human heart or the human touch. So until next week, Joe Wells, Lawana Jones, we're going to see you physically. Jay Jackson, you coming in?
No, I won't be there, unfortunately.
Jay is in Puerto Rico, everybody. So, are you Puerto Rico?
Mexico.
Cuba? Mexico.
Mexico.
Hey, somewhere. You're not here. Anyway, I hope you make it. It's still, I just heard from the producer. It is a few tickets left. Go to AfroTix, TIX.live if you would like to show up and rub elbows and exchange emerging ideas with some of the best and brightest Black business leaders in the nation. We'll be there next week at the Reginald Lewis Museum. Looking forward to seeing you. It is the 6th annual. So until then, everybody have a great day. Technology can't hold us down, Lawana. I'm glad you pushed through. They was trying to hold Lawana down earlier, but she said, you know what? I ain't having that. I am not having it. Not today. Not
That's
today.
right.
Y'all have a great day, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.